Hey everyone, I'm Scott Stokely, and this video is about the proper way to throw a hyzer. Now this might seem like a pretty simple or basic topic to cover, but like with every part of the game, players get it wrong. Especially if you're new, there's no reason for you to get it right. But I'm going to show you the right way to do it that's going to lower your score, get you to throw farther, reduce the strain on your body. Pretty much everything about your life is going to improve when you throw hyzers properly. And by the way, I will be demonstrating with the Lark from Stokely Discs. This is the first driver from Stokely Discs. It's available for wholesale. Go to stokelydisc.com if you're a retail vendor, private course, and I'd be happy to get you set up. All right, so first off, a hyzer, if you're new, is simply defined as the throw that when it's pulled across your body or it leaves your hand, the outside portion of the disc is lower than the part of the disc that's closer to you. Meaning, if I'm throwing a backhand this direction, if this side of the disc is lower than this side, meaning anywhere from here to there, every one of these is a hyzer angle. It's how many degrees of angle you have, but this entire range is called a hyzer. And basically it means if I throw backhand, right-handed with a disc that flies perfectly straight, that disc will bank to the left because this edge of the disc is lower than this edge. Now, the biggest reason players get the hyzer wrong is because there's really three different ways. In theory, you could control the angle of the disc and throw hyzers. The first way is completely wrong, and that would be with your wrist. All right, I won't go down a rabbit hole explaining all the nuances here, but basically take your hand, put it in its natural resting position where it most fluidly wants to move. That's where you're gonna typically set the disc. There's always exceptions based on individual body types and workarounds, but basically you want your hand sitting in its default setting where it wants to most naturally move. Compared to the forearm, the wrist moves, that's where the hand's gonna remain. Don't mess with hand position when changing the angle of a disc. Now the second way that is not the primary way, although it will get used, would be to raise or lower your pull line. Meaning, if this is your pull line, meaning the place where you have the most strength when you pull the disc across your body, you can change the angle by simply pulling the disc up here or pulling it down here. I'll get to why you will do a little bit of that in a minute, but that is not your starting point. You typically want to pull the disc across the body where you have the most strength whenever possible. So then you're left with the third option, which is nothing changes other than one hinge on your body, and that's this one right here. Want to throw a 10-degree hyzer? Keep the disc at its strongest pull line, keep the hand in its natural resting position. This hinge, 10 degrees. Want to go 20 degrees? This hinge, 20 degrees. 10-degree hyzer, this hinge, 10 degrees. Now, you will get to a point where this hinge isn't comfortably moving forward past a certain point, especially when you get older maybe, but this hinge definitely only goes so far backwards. So yes, at that point you have no choice but to complicate the throw, because remember, changing one hinge is keeping it simple, but you'll add one variable, making it a more complex throw for more extreme angles, and that variable is going to be the shoulder on your throwing arm. So what this means is this hinge, as long as it's comfortable, nothing else moves above the waist. But once this hinge says I don't want to move comfortably any further, then you, out of necessity, you'll use the second hinge, the shoulder. And it's the same thing for hyzers. Certainly you can only go so far back. You want to turn the disc over, throw a roller, put a more extreme hyzer angle than this, then yes, you'll have no choice but to use that second hinge. But this is the primary hinge, using the second hinge out of necessity. And by the way, yes, if you watch slow motion videos, you may see some players that when they lean over, their arm drops a little bit as well. That can happen, but the focus should be primarily on this hinge only. concentrate on getting this one right, and if the arm drops a little above or below that spot, then you can just simply allow that to happen. Now the final part of then is, when do you drop into position? And you can't really get into position too early. Technically, if you wanted to get into position earlier in the throw and lean over, you could do that. It's going to make the run up more difficult, probably take you a little bit off balance. But getting into position too early is far less of an issue than getting into position too late. So what I mean by this is, this hinge needs to be in position before the plant foot hits the ground. So if I'm running up the fairway, I can be upright as long as I want to, but before my plant foot hits the ground, I need to be in position. I need to have this hinge basically where I want it to be as I pull the disc across my body, across my strongest pull line, meaning you don't plant your foot and as you're pulling the disc, begin to lean over. That is a recipe for disaster, because you're adding a variable in the final fraction of a second of the throw. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate. Again, I'm going to use my Lark. It's an understable disc, so this would be, when throwing hyzer, typically going to be for a hyzer flip, meaning it's going to pop up straight, but this is what it's going to look like. I wish I could have zoomed in on that. That was a good throw. But that's it. You want to get the hyzer right on your throw. It's a key part of the game. And remember, the Lark's available at StokelyDisc.com for wholesale. Go check him out, everybody. Thanks.